So last time what I did was to write the representations of un, okay, and the representations were given by if I remember correctly, okay, in two ways. Okay, the determinant representation tensored with lambda 1 up to lambda n minus 1. These are partitions. Okay, this is equal, or this is unitary irreducible representations. We tabulated in two different ways. One was by giving the partition, and these are the determinant things. This is not this, right. The second was lambda 1 up to lambda rho tensor mu 1 up to mu sigma, but these are the complex conjugate representation with trace condition added. Okay. So this one was written as lambda 1 up to lambda rho. Okay. The rho plus sigma, by the way, rho plus sigma is n, and this is normally written as this one minus mu sigma, right. This is larger, this is, yeah, minus, you take the, yeah, this is a least one, so this is the least negative number, minus mu sigma minus 1 up to mu minus mu 1. Okay, so this can be written simply as lambda 1 up to lambda n with no condition on positivity. Here all the numbers are positive. Okay, so here all the lambda a's are positive, here all the lambda mu's are positive, but if I write this like this by reversing the, and these are ordered, so this is decreasing order, right. But if I reverse it and allow the negative values, you have this thing. Okay, so lambda i's here are not constrained to be non-negative, but it should be, all the only condition is that it is like this. And I told you that the advantage of that way of writing this, putting all together, is that it is easy to count dimensions. That is, if you write, no sorry, if you write like this, it is easy to count dimensions because the trace condition is absent. Okay, there is no upper and lower indices, so the trace condition is absent. Okay, I think you, I hope you. Now I want to go into SUN. Okay, this is directly impinging on stuff of great interest. Okay, so here all the determinantal representations go to identity. Okay, trivial. Okay, okay, becomes 0 because the determinant is 1, so this thing is going away. Okay, so these representations or unitary irreducibles are given by lambda 1 up to lambda n minus 1, where lambda 1 is larger than or equal to lambda 2, lambda n minus 1, that is positive. So let us look at some simple examples. Issue 2. Here there is one, okay, the trivial one. Okay, so let me write the standard index diagrams. Let's write dimension. Okay. So the IRR is what we call spin of IRR, angular momentum of IRR. Okay, so this is trivial. The dimension is 1. The spin is 0, or angular momentum is 0. Okay. Here if I look at 1, okay, the way we count is the standard index diagrams. So here I could have 1 and 2, so dimension is 2, right. So the dimension of this irreducible representation is 2, okay. Then the spin of this representation is what we would call as half. Okay. Then I can look at the representation I am trying to remember, yeah, here, okay, so here the way we have done this, okay, these are all positive, okay. Now 3, I can ask what happens with the representation 2, so this will be 1, standard index diagrams will be, you take this thing 1 1, okay, 1 2 2 2, so the representation is 3 dimensional, so spin is 3 halves, right. It's a 3 what dimension is, what is it, yeah, no, it's not right, 3 is 3 minus 1, spin is 1. Now it is true that this representation, if I write this as 1 0, by going back and putting in the lambda n and go to the other notation, this is equivalent to 0 minus 1, right. What we did was to remove this minus 1 by using the epsilon symbol to the other one, right. So this is what? This is a complex conjugate representation. So this is complex conjugate to 1. Okay. But the claim is this is equivalent to 1. So the representation and the complex conjugate for SU2 are equivalent, but it can never be made real, okay. So this is equivalent to 1, okay. This representation, so the spin half representation is equivalent to the complex conjugate of spin half. This is, if I write it in terms of angular momentum, the spin half and the complex conjugate, they are equivalent, okay, but it can never be made real. There is no basis in which this representation is real, okay. One can make a proof that this is the case, okay. So that is of importance when people discuss charge conjugation. It has some deep consequences for quantum field theory, okay. Now this is SUN. Now I want to see what happens. So let me look at SU3. Okay. Direct interest in particle physics. Okay. So here this IRIs are characterized by 2 numbers. Okay. So the first can be 0 0. So this is dimension is 1. This is trivial. Okay. Okay. Then you have 2, 3 0, but 1 0. There is one box. So what is its dimension? 1, 2 and 3. So this is representation 3. So it's 3 dimensional. So the representation is called the dimension is 3. This is called the 3 dimensional it's called 3. This is the one in which quarks are put in QCD. 3 if I look at the representation where I have 1 0, well I have to get 3 bar, but let us see, let me write 1 1 for 2 boxes, okay, and the representation as SU3, okay, so 1 1 1 2. That's why I was confused. I should write like this: 1 1 1 2, no 1 2 should increase 1 2. I am confused. 1 2 boxes, the number should increase down, no? 1 second, I'll tell. I should get 3 bar, or again a 3.
You need a 1 3, a 1 2, a 1 3, and a 2.
1 2 1 3, good, 2 3. See, this is a 3-dimensional representation. This representation is actually 3 star. Okay. So why? Because this one is equal to, by the rule, 0 0 minus 1. Okay, subtract 1 from all of it, there is no determinant outside. So this is this. Okay. So this is the complex conjugate representation. So the 3 bar representation or 3 star representation is coming from 1 1. This is where the anti-quarks are put. Then 4, we have this representation, which is interesting, 2 1. This is again a particle physics interest. Yesterday Harald Frisch talked about it. Okay. How does it go? The diagram is this one. Okay. So here you have 1 1 2. Let me copy from here. The numbers should stay this, should not decrease on the right, should increase down. So 1 2 2 1 2 3, then I have what, 1 3 2, 1 3 3, 2 2 3, and 2 3 3. 2, so 8.
Looks like you repeated 1 2. First 2 are the same.
1 2 2, 1 2 3,
Yeah.
1
1 1 3.
1 2, 1 1 3. Yeah. There are 8 of them. This is a 8-dimensional representation. This is baryons. Or yesterday he talked about baryons, or these pseudoscalar mesons. Okay. So this is 8 of SU3. Now this can also be written, okay, in another way. Okay. You can write this as 2 1 is equivalent to 1 0 minus 1. Yeah. Okay. So this, but here you have upstairs index and the lower index, so you should make the tensor traceless. Okay. Then the counting you have to take into account the trace condition. That is the only problem. Okay, if it is a problem. Okay. Now notice the following thing. If I take this representation lambda 1, lambda 2, okay, this is equivalent to lambda 1 minus lambda 1 is larger than lambda 2, 0, then minus lambda 2, right. This I can introduce a new notation. Okay. So IRS for SU3 can also be written as lambda, some other notation, lambda mu, where lambda is non-negative, mu non-negative, because I flip the sign here, and they correspond to, in the tensors, are rank for the form some alpha 1, there are lambda 1 upstairs indices and mu beta 1 up to beta mu, right? Yeah, lambda upstairs indices and mu downstairs indices, okay? And you have the trace condition, okay? So you can also write the SU3 tensors, this is equivalent to this, okay? So this is negative because here everything was positive. This negative number I call positive by rewriting and changing in notation, okay? This corresponds to lower indices. So there are mu is a tensor of rank mu downstairs and a tensor of rank lambda upstairs, okay? So the tensors can also be written like this, okay? The advantage of this is there is a very simple formula for dimension that has been found in books. Actually Okubo quotes I don't know somebody, okay? The dimension of lambda mu, this is a useful formula, is 1/2 lambda plus 1 mu plus 1 times lambda plus mu plus 2. So here for example if you take 1 0 1 1, the dimension is 1/2 2 2 4, so it is 8, right? 2 into 2, yeah. Huh? Yes. Then if you look at this, yesterday he again talked about the 10 representation. Let's look at 3 0. But 3 0 I cannot, yeah, I can do that. 3 0, he yesterday talked about the decuplet, Harold Fritsch. So that is 3 0 is 1/2 3 plus 1, this is 1 times 3 plus 2 5 is 10. Okay. So this is a 10 representation which played such an important role in discovering color, okay? Because as he emphasized, there was a problem with statistics on the so called delta plus plus resonance, okay? So they had introduced some internal degree of freedom which were the quark color, okay?
I'm curious, in this SU2 case you have these irreducible representations have this spin associated with it.
Spin is angular
So is there some sort of quantity in these SU3 cases?
no, I mean this spin angular momentum comes from history, no? It has a history, it comes from rotation symmetry, no? So that language is prior to the introduction of this kind of group theory in physics, okay? So SU3 you don't say anything, okay? There is no analogous statement. So I now do ON. I don't know enough about ON because they have, the problem with ON is the following: ON and SON. I'll say what happens, okay? Here what happens is, because, okay, the UN representations, by the way, note, I should write something else. When these UN representations of UN is restricted to SUN, okay, it remains irreducible. Since for, okay, in an IRR this representation delta p is a multiple of identity, right? In the representation delta p a, okay, you simply get determinant of a to the power of p times unity. is a multiple of identity, okay, is proportional to 1. Okay. So this is measured in the electric charge, U1 charge. Okay. In UN you have this U1, overall U1. Okay. So that is always a multiple of identity in an irreducible. Okay. So when you don't worry about it, the representation remains irreducible. Okay. I have used that here. Okay. Now let me look at ON. Okay. So again restrict UN, okay, to SON. Okay. So here in ON, okay, then the representation delta P, okay, goes into either delta 0 or delta 1. See the determinant, okay, okay, so in delta 0, okay, in delta 0 A goes into unit delta 0 of A is 1, okay, if A is in SON, okay, it is in delta 1 of A is determinant of A, okay, which can be plus or minus 1 if A is in ON. Okay. So the whole class of this determinant representations collapse into either plus or minus. Okay. Okay, rest is now the problem is the following. Okay. In ON, okay, also the distinction between the representation and its complex conjugate disappears. Okay. Now here, furthermore, this is a problem. There is a new, but also, okay, look at the following object. The trace okay is an invariant. Because because of the because well it's obvious, no, A lambda alpha A lambda beta summation lambda is delta alpha beta, right. So if I take the trace of a tensor, it is an invariant. You follow what I am saying? Okay. So we have to work with traceless tensors where the trace refers to only the upstairs indices or only the downstairs indices. Okay. So we must work with must work with traceless tensors. Okay, with only say upper indices. We have to take out the trace. Okay. So if for example, if I have a tensor like T lambda mu, okay, we should replace it by T lambda mu minus some constant delta lambda mu, okay, imposing the condition where, okay, C is obtained by taking the trace, okay. So C will be summation lambda T lambda lambda minus, okay, 1 over n, right, times unit matrix, is that right? C, yeah, where n, well, D, where D range of lambda, is that right? If I take the trace, I want to make it traceless, so subtract the multiple of identity. Now when I take lambda equal to mu sub add, I get this, and I fix the C, because this one will be d-dimensional unit matrix, so I will cancel this. Okay. So you have to take out the traces systematically, okay, when dealing with this. Okay. So what happens is the following. Okay. Here I don't know the proof, okay, but I think it is given in Murnaghan or something. Okay. Consequence, restrict frames so that the sum of the lengths of first two columns is less than or equal to n for ON. If you make stuff which is bigger, okay, for example, if you take, for example, let's look at O3. If I look at this one as a Young frame with which I symmetrize, and I apply it on a tensor where the indices are running over 1, 2, 3, okay, you will get 0, okay, will give 0 on traceless tensors. So you take tensor of rank 4, okay, put the trace condition, then apply the projector coming from here, you will get 0. Okay. I don't know how to prove it, okay, but it is a fact. For example, if you take a Riemann tensor in 3 dimensions, I said that the symmetry of the Riemann tensor is governed by this Young frame, okay, you will get 0. The Riemann tensor in 3 dimensions you will see is vanishing, okay, but it is a known result by some other means, okay. By Riemannian geometry, this is a standard result. No? If you compute in 3 dimensions, gravity has no degree of freedom and whatever. Okay, this is coming from here, already coming from here, because the Riemann tensor is 0. Okay, so locally the metric is flat. Then from there you can go on. Okay. Okay. Now, so let me look at examples. Okay. Yeah, this is best example is O3. So there are the following unitary irreducible representations, just to see what they are. One is the trivial representation times 0, 0, O3. So there are 2 entries here. Okay, here I will get what dimension is 1, and then you have name. Here we have names. This is what we will call as a scalar. But then we have also delta 1, 0, 0, dimension is still 1. These are real representations. The matrices of O3 are represented by real matrices. This is what we would call a pseudo-scalar. Then you have delta 0 tensor with 1 0. This is dimension is 3 because this is what you would call vector, no? The parity, there is a determinant, is acting trivially. Then I have delta 1 tensor 1 0. This will be represented by 3 again, but this is pseudo vector. Okay. Then one more example I want to give, namely I want to look at delta 0 times 1 1. Here I have this picture, right? So here I have 1 2, 1 3, 2 3. You can guess what this is. This is a pseudo vector again, because this is really the cross product of two vectors. Okay, so this actually transforms at a determinant like a pseudo vector. These two indices, you can put an epsilon on it, okay, and make it look like a vector. So you get a determinant. Okay. When you apply the transformation with A, you will get the standard transformation up to a determinant. Right? The determinant is changing the sign. Okay. So disconnected components will give you a minus sign. So this is your pseudo vector. So this will be vector. So this is again 3 dimensional. Okay. So this is vector, and you can keep going. Okay. As I said, I don't know the full results on this, but I know that they are very complicated, and there are differences between n even and n odd. The way, because you see there is overcounting. Okay. Because this one is the same as we counted something we counted here. So this way of writing is overcounting. Okay. So there is some way of sorting this out, and for n even and n odd, finding the basis of these representations is known, but the rules are baroque. They are very complicated. Okay. And I think I know where to look them up. There is a guy called Ram Gulam, a physicist. Ram Gulam, no. He spells it like this. Ram Gulam. Okay. He what? His family migrated to Mauritius. Then the name got changed. From Bihar they went to Mauritius. Now he is somewhere in England. Okay. And he does string theory, and he has used SON. But anyway, he was using something, no matter what he did, but he had to use SON representations. That is the important thing. And so he took the trouble of digging in the literature and compiling all the appropriate results, and they are complicated. Okay. I cannot retain them because I don't know how to prove them. I have no. For example, how do I prove that this result here? In a this some of the this result here. How do I prove? I do not know. Okay. Of course, some cases you can check, no? But how do I see? Maybe there is an elaborate proof. But how do I see? or how do I count representations of SUN? Is there a nice formula? There are. Some of the formulae are given in Bjorn's book. Okay. Is it worth my while to study them? I doubt, because knowing general dimension of a general SUN, what will I do with it? I mean, unless the occasion presents itself, I would say that one will wait. Okay. Put it in abeyance, because they are combined counting problems. Okay. You have to organize the counting in a very careful way. Okay. That by itself is not. Let me put it this way: I don't know of any consequence of knowing how to count in physics. Okay. So, any deep consequence. So I wait until somebody shows it to me. Okay. Okay. So now I'll say SON. Okay. What happens is they are given by simply these things. Okay. Given by ON table, ignoring these two things make no difference. Okay. So there is no pseudo. Okay. So that is so that gives you the table of representations. But as I said, in the case of SON, ON and so on, there is more work to do. You have to take out the traces. Okay. In particular cases, it is not a big deal to take out the traces. People doing calculations routinely do it. Okay. But if you ask, what is a general representation of SO5, okay, which is irreducible? Okay, it is a problem. I mean, I will have to go and look in books. Okay. Whereas in the case of UN, one can sort of tell quite easily. Okay. So this is the status of this particular art. So now,
I think there are descriptions of SO, maybe SO2N, where you, instead of using their combinatorial models, or instead of using just one Young frame and two Young frames. I forgot how you make sense of that, but I think there is an answer to that.
Answer to?
I think there is a nice answer to how to
count.
To count and to index irreducibles for, say, SO2N. And it involves not using one Young frame, but a double Young frame.
That I do not know. The Ramgoolam papers were using one, and he was using some. There are specialized books on orthogonal groups. That is very funny, no? You don't see specialized groups represent UN, but for orthogonal groups there are specialized things. And Ramgoolam was using some papers. I am not remembering, but I have not heard about two Young frames. I have not heard. Okay.
I think it's something for SO2, and I mean there's this, of course, this distinction between odd and even, and it makes quite a difference.
Yes.
Theoretically.
Yes. There are other groups. I have stopped here, but in physics, I am not going to touch them. Okay. In string theory, and other grand unified theories, you get other objects like G2, E8. G2 and E8 definitely have appeared. Okay. There is a way to classify. I mean, at the Lie algebra, there is a way one knows how to classify the. This is the problem is I am doing the tensor methods, but using Lie algebra techniques, there are there are rules of how to do the calculations. Okay, but they will give you all the reducibles and then even the dimensions using some formulae. Okay, but if you ask somebody to do calculations, then you are stuck because you have to rewrite them in terms of actual objects transforming in particular way. So you are forced into the tensor techniques. Then I think one has to spend time on these things, okay, which I have not done. And there are all these things, division algebras, all kinds of things start coming. So now I want to start discussing the Poincare group. We'll call it P. Undoubtedly, this is the most important group governing quantum field theory, no doubt about it. Okay? Not even quantum field theory, relativistic quantum field theory. Not only that, much beyond it, when you go into quantum gravity too, this has an over governing role. Okay. So here, I remind you, okay, that P, the Poincare group P, okay, consists of a pair of elements A, lambda, where A is a translation. Okay, so it's a translation group. Lambda is a Lorentz transformation. Okay, I am using the notation. So lambda, okay, leaves the metric eta, okay, which is 1 minus 1 invariant. One way to write that is to write like this, okay, eta alpha beta, this is a metric, eta alpha beta, lambda nu alpha, lambda nu beta is equal to, the same thing goes, this is equal to g eta mu nu, and likewise if I write eta mu nu, lambda mu alpha, lambda nu beta is eta alpha beta. Okay, I am just unlike until now, I am taking the pain of distinguishing upstairs and downstairs indices, and also the positioning, whether it is first it is mapping a vector space to the dual. Okay, so I want to know which way it goes. Okay, for a minute at least. So this is a Lorentz group. This is a metric of the problem. Okay, this is the inverse components, and those are the direct components. Now there are, and the group law, which you may remember, is the following. Okay, A1 lambda 1, A2 lambda 2 is equal to A1 plus lambda 1 A2 lambda 1 lambda 2. Okay, and we have seen that the translations form an abelian invariant subgroup. Okay, and this is a Lorentz group. So we can see that topologically from this very splitting P is R4 for translations, cross product with whatever this manifold is P, is whatever the lambda L is. Okay, this is a topological splitting. Okay, and we have a reason to understand what the meaning of this splitting is. Okay. And I want to show you one. L is a group. Okay. We will show that L consists of 4 disjoint pieces, which are normally written like this. Determinant is minus up, L plus minus plus down. So these are disjoint pieces. Okay. So we will show that the Lorentz group, okay, to prove, okay, that it is a union of 4 disjoint pieces where L plus up is the identity, the kinetic identity component of L. Okay. That means this is a part, it's a group, this is the one which is given by the Lie algebra and which is connected to the identity of the group. Okay. Rest are not groups. Okay. Rest are, if you take product of 2 of these elements, you will jump back there. Okay. So this I will prove. Okay. The second thing I would like to prove in the 1 hour or so I have is this L plus up is topologically this is a topological identification, simply a 3-dimensional real vector space cross topologically SO3, or if you want RP3. Yeah. SO3 is a 3-dimensional rotation group which we have seen is a projective real vector space, right. This is doubly connected. This is simply a 3-dimensional real space. Okay. So L plus up is doubly connected. Because this part is doubly connected. Wait. 6. Yeah, sure. It's correct. No? This is doubly connected. Then we want to prove that the universal cover is SL2C.
But that follows, that's almost immediate. Once you know this, right? Because once you know that L plus up is R3 cross SO3, the other thing I think is immediate because proposition 2 tells you that.
The problem is if I replace this by SU2,
yeah,
I don't know what group comes, no?
No. But the point is that you see SL2, things in SL2 have a polar factorization.
Huh?
Things in SL2C have a polar factorization, which means that they can be written as an upper triangular matrix.
Yeah.
Cross
Borel.
Cross SU2.
Yeah, I know.
And so that immediately follows from what you wrote here. This is.
Yeah, I agree. But I will do, yes, I agree with you. I will do everything rather quite explicitly, showing how to make the mapping from SL2C into Lorentz group in notation, I am not disagreeing with you, I agree with you, okay. But if I bring in Borel, they don't know this.
Well, it's basically polar factorization. The fact that you can take an SL2C matrix and write it as
upper triangular,
as an SU2 times a
upper triangular matrix,
times
you know.
a triangular matrix.
Upper triangular,
Upper triangular.
you know.
With diagonal matrix.
Yeah, agree with you.
I think that's right.
No disagreement. Okay. Okay. So this is what I will prove. Okay. I doubt that by the time I finish this, any time will be left. Okay. What will be? I am doing all this, and hopefully, okay, we will also give. This is an important thing. The Casimir's invariance of the Poincare group they are quite different from the Casimir invariance of SL2C. I mean, if you start looking for unitary representations of SL2C, you will not succeed. I am assure you, it will take you years. It took a long time for Bachmann even to solve the corresponding problem in SL2R. Okay, it's quite difficult. There are lots of irreducibles, unitary irreducibles. They are classified by some rules. Okay, whereas for the Poincare group, where translations are involved, the answer is remarkably simple. Okay, for all practical purposes, we can get all the needed representations rather fast. There are some representations which Wigner classified which have not found a proper place in physics, unitary irreducibles, and they are complicated. Only now they are being understood. Okay? When you try to make quantum field theory, but they have not played an important role in quantum field theory till now. Future I do not know. So there is a big difference between including translations and not including translations. The story completely changes. Okay? Quite remarkable, but that is the case. Okay. So I wanted to start by noticing. So I want to know. Okay, item 1. So for this, let's go back, okay, to these equations here. Okay, let's go back to this equation, eta alpha beta. Let me look at if we would like say let lambda alpha 0, lambda beta 0 is 1. Okay, so this is lambda 0 0 squared minus, okay, summation I lambda I 0 squared is equal to 1. So this is lambda 0 0 squared, okay, is larger than or equal to 1 or less than or equal to minus 1. Okay. Either this element is exceeding 1 or it is less than minus 1. Okay. Similarly, from the second equation, lambda, the other one, 0 0 is larger than or equal to 1 or less than or equal to minus 1. Okay. Okay. Furthermore, also determinant lambda is either plus 1 or minus 1. Because of that equation again. So we have at least 4 pieces. Okay. So the Poincare group, so L has at least 4 disjoint pieces. Okay, what are they? The notation is L plus up. Okay. So here the rule is here lambda 0 0 is larger than or equal to 1, okay, and determinant of lambda is plus 1. This is called, so I will give the names, proper orthochronous Lorentz group. Okay. Then you have, this is going up, okay, and this is down. Okay. So going up means lambda 0 0 is larger than or equal to 1, determinant of lambda is minus 1. Okay. This is called, let me see, it contains parity, there is some name for it. Okay, so not like that, yeah. So this contains parity P, which is 1 minus 1, that is spatial reflection. Okay, this here, because it is determinant is minus 1, but lambda 0 0 is positive, and this object here L plus up union L minus up, which I think is called L up, is called orthochorous Lorentz group. I have to prove that these are groups. Okay. Yet to prove that this is a group. When I multiply, I keep there. Okay. But I at least have 4 pieces. Huh? Then I have L plus down. So this is this here L lambda 0 0 is less than or equal to minus 1. Okay. And determinant of lambda is equal to plus 1. So this contains total reflection. What is that? Wigner calls it I. It is simply the unit matrix. Okay. This is called what is it?
The determinant of lambda is plus 1.
Wait. I may be orthochronous. Proper Lorentz group. Proper is this is called orthochorous. So this is called something else.
Doesn't proper refer to the spatial?
Determinant. Proper refers to the determinant. Okay. So here the determinant is plus. So what is it called? Orthochorous. I am forgetting. I see. Determinant is plus 1. I think this is called orthochorous. Let me take a chance. Huh? These are all just words, but L plus up union L I am looking at this. No, lambda 0 0 is positive, determinant of lambda is minus 1. So this should be, I am changing the sign here. Excuse me, I am getting confused. What did I do? This is correct. So let me look at the table. The union of this one, so I should write L plus up union L minus up. This is called orthochorus. Lorentz group. Okay. And it contains parity. Okay. Then
That's it.
huh?
That it's a simple, because the only condition there is that the 1-1 entry is positive.
It contains
But the union is not a group.
this one, this thing is a group.
Is it?
Yeah. Because p squared is 1. If you take the square of it, come back here. Determinant, square of the determinant is plus 1. Whereas the sign doesn't change. Okay. So this is a group. Yes? I prove everything. Okay. That's not difficult. The 1, it is piece 1, piece 2. And if I look at piece 3, I can write determinant is plus and I change the sign at time. Okay. So this one contains the lambda 0 0 less than minus 1. Okay.